Carolyn Doobie here. What's the play for today? Well, today it has to do with the elf on the shelf. Now, when I was in the store, I saw that they had different outfits for these, and it got me thinking, yeah, let's put some fun clothes on her. But of course, they didn't have things in quite the colors that I wanted, so I decided, hey, I'm gonna make her a skirt. How hard can this be? I gel printed the fabric. You're gonna see that I use regular acrylic paint, nothing fancy. And then I'm gonna use glue actually to put this together because, well, sewing is not, how shall we say, one of my natural abilities. To build the skirt, I'm going to use the 3x5 gel press plate, and I've got it on an acrylic stamp mount there just to make it easier to move around. I've got a long piece of white cotton fabric here. What's most important to me is that it's white and it's cotton. Beyond that, I don't have any idea what kind of fabric this is. Now, to get the pattern on here, I'm going to be using regular acrylic paint from Paper Artsy and stencils from StencilGirl Products. Now, why am I not using fabric paint to do this? Because I'm not going to wash this, so I'm not worried about how it's going to hold up to 100 washings. I mean, this is a skirt going on a doll. So I'm brayering the paint around there, covering the entire 3x5 gel plate, and then I'm going to put the stencil on top of it. This stencil is called Triangular Pathways, and I designed it for StencilGirl. And then what I'm going to do is take the brayer and roll that over the top of it. That way I get good contact between the stencil and the paint, and then I'm just going to flip that gel plate over right onto the fabric and just push it right down. And that will transfer the paint that's on there onto the fabric. So what about the paint that's still on my brayer? There's still some paint on my stencil, and there might even still be a little bit of paint on that gel plate. Well, I'm going to use a cleanup piece of paper. This piece of paper I'm going to use as I'm making it, and this is where I'm going to clean everything off. Yep, that's how I clean my stencils. If I get all the paint off of it, it's going to be clean, right? So I'm just pushing all the excess paint onto the paper using the brayer. And now my stencil is clean. Now, is it like factory new super clean? No, but there isn't any paint building up on it. And that's what I'm after. I'm going to continue this process, getting color and pattern all along the strip of fabric. Now, as I'm doing this with stencils, you may notice that each time I'm doing it a little bit differently with the stencil. And that's because, well, there's a lot of flexibility and freedom with stencils and gel printing, because you can put the stencil down first and then the paint, or you can put the paint down first and then the stencil. There's no wrong way to do it. So what that means then is that there's only right ways to do it. If you'd like to know more about gel printing, I've got an entire resource page for you over on my blog at acolorfuljourney.com. I've got things on there all the way from getting started guides, first step kind of things, all the way to more advanced printing techniques, as well as some things that you can do with the prints that you make. So check it all out over there on the blog. And it was really important to me that I have all these different colors on here. So I'm going to do one stencil pattern per color of paint that I have to fill in this strip of fabric. And I'm thinking this is going to be more than enough fabric. And I'm about to find out that that may not be true, but we'll get to that in just a minute. So I'm going to bring in the pink here with one last pattern. I'm going to put this on, and this is going to finish up the colorful gel printing part of getting the skirt ready. Now I'm going to be just about ready to assemble it, and my cleanup paper here is pretty full of color and pattern, so I'm going to call this piece finished also. And it's time to put this skirt together. First thing I'm going to do is trim up the fabric. I'm going to go right along the top edge of the pattern on one side, and then on the other side, I'm going to leave some of the white. And I'm going to attempt here to eyeball it and keep it nice and even all the way across. Now it's time to build the gathered skirt. So I've got a needle with some thread on it, and I am simply going to make really big stitches here. This might be called a running stitch, but I say that with some hesitation because I'm not really an expert when it comes to sewing. I'm more of a functional, hey, how do I make this stick and stay here kind of sewer. So I'm just putting this through to gather up the fabric. I know some people can do this with a sewing machine. I have never had any luck doing it with that, but of course, whichever way works for you is the best way for you to do it. So I've got this through here, and then I'm going to just gather it, push it up nice and tight, slide it down that thread, and I think I'm going to have plenty of skirt to go around my little elf. And the answer is no, I certainly don't. At best, this would be a hospital gown with a big opening in the back. So I needed some more fabric. So what I did is simply grabbed all my supplies again and printed another strip of fabric. But this time I did make it a little bit longer. So I'm about to commit an oops that's, well, rather painful, as I'm just gathering it right onto the same thread I had for the first piece of fabric. Yep, there it just happened, that big old outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. I stuck the needle into the cuticle of my thumb by accident, and yep, that one needed a band-aid. By the way, as an adult, band-aids are not as miraculous as when you're a kid. I remember when I was a kid and I'd put the band-aid on, suddenly I felt better. Yeah, this thing still hurts even with a band-aid on it. But I've got my skirt all gathered together here, and now I'm going to see if I've got enough fabric to go around the elf this time. And happily, I do have enough fabric, so now I need to make it so that the gathers stay. So to do that, I'm going to glue this. I'm sure there's a way with sewing, but well, you can see how that went for me. That's kind of taken my life in my own hands today, so I'm going to use glue to do this. This is Beacon's 3-in-1 craft glue, and it dries very quickly, grabs things very well. I'm taking one of the scraps of fabric from when I trimmed off the pieces, and that's going to become the tie that's going to go around this. So it's going to tie around her kind of like an apron and go all the way around, so it's not like a big opening in the back of a hospital gown, but actually more like a skirt. Now, I want a little bit of an insurance policy here that all these gathers aren't going to come undone. So I'm going to put a layer of glue on the back side of this and then put one of the scrap pieces of fabric right across there just to give me a little more guarantee that this glue is going to keep everything where it needs to be. After all, there's a reason why we sew our clothes and don't glue them. And this next part was the very hardest part for me, and that was waiting for the glue to completely set up. Now, it's not totally dry, but it's set up well enough that I can give it a try and see how this goes around her. We might call this an oops, an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly because there wasn't enough here that she didn't end up with that hospital gown gap in the back. Yeah, I guess maybe I'm not ready for Project Runway just yet. But for an elf, for a doll, this is going to work just fine because I can kind of pull those back pieces of fabric next to each other, and I don't think anybody's going to notice that the fabric isn't quite perfect back there. Well, as I looked at the waistband on this, I realized I wanted to add another last little touch to it. And apparently I wanted to keep it a secret from the elf herself, so she is over there almost like playing hide and seek with me. She's not peeking and looking to see, with this vintage trim that I have. Now this trim I am super excited to be using because it was something of my grandmother's, and it's from some of my hoarded stash. So one, I'm using something up that I've had for a very long time, and two, it's kind of like having a little bit of her here with me on this. Of course, she's probably thinking I could have sewn this pretty easily since she was a master seamstress, and well, clearly I am not one of those. Well, now it's time to dress my elf on the shelf. I'm tying the skirt on the back there, and then I can tuck in the waistband, make those little bit of adjustments here and there to get it just the way I want, close up the gap in the back so she doesn't feel a breeze. And now she's a colorful elf on the shelf, just what I need down in my studio this holiday season. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've been enjoying this video, hit that thumbs up, and of course, if you'd like to see more of the fun, subscribe. That way you'll know as soon as I have a new video out. And yep, you can find more stuff that I'm up to over on the blog at acolorfuljourney.com, including my free workshop called Permission to Play. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.